Welcome back. My name is DJ Eitzen, co-founder and COO of Limitless Minds. And today we have another outstanding guest, Coach Mel Tucker from Michigan State University. Is going to be being interviewed with Trevor Moawad. Great conversation. These guys go way back. So you're going to get a little history of, how they work together. But most importantly, how does Coach lead? How does he hire? How does he take something that's very complex and make it simple? And he's going to give you some actionable tools today that you can use to help find your way through. So with that, Coach Tucker and Trev, off to you.
Thank you so much, DJ. Excited to continue this webinar series. Today we are with Mel Tucker, head coach of the Michigan State University Spartans, former head coach at Colorado, former defensive coordinator at the University of Georgia. Before that, one of the top assistant head coaches at the University of Alabama, Jacksonville Jaguars, Chicago Bears, and obviously in your many stops, one of your great epic stops outside of LSU and some others was the Ohio State University. But Mel, really excited for you to make some time to join Limitless Minds on this webinar today.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Trev, man. You look good, bro. Great to see you.
I know. I thought you were rolling with the glasses, but I guess I'm rolling with them today. But no, really excited. In full transparency, Coach Tucker and I've had a long friendship as well as a business relationship, working relationship. We first crossed paths for me being one of the mental coaches at the University of Alabama. So I would sort of integrate with Coach in staff meetings as I'd present and team things, and then built our own personal relationship. And then we were in that handful of pariahs that left Alabama to go join Coach Smart at Georgia. And but over the time, all has been well. So Mel, it's awesome just, on a personal note, but to watch your evolution as you've evolved and become a head coach in the Big Ten, one of the top universities, as well as one of the top college football programs. What do you attribute your success to, and help people understand maybe what life's like traversing the National Football League and the world of college football as a parent, as an employee, as a worker, as a grinder? What do you attribute your success to?
Yeah, that's a great question, Trev. I would say that all of the experiences that I've had as a player and then working under great coaches. I was in Coach Alvarez's first recruiting class at Wisconsin in 1990, and all the great coaches that he had on his staff. And then, like you talked about, working for Nick Saban 3 times and working for Jim Tressel and Romeo Crennel. All of those coaches, and all of those experiences, I learned so many things from. I was able to take away, bits and pieces from every stop, and I was able to develop my own style of coaching and my own philosophies in terms of developing players.
And kind of help people understand. Let's go to the University of Alabama. One of the things that we've talked a lot is sometimes people look at the world of sports, and they see just the nature of just you're out competing and it's a game and it's something that we've grown up playing in our backyards. But it really is a business, and it's a business where when you don't win, there are massive consequences, and there's a real good process to win. But what was a day like as a coach under Nick Saban? Who Forbes listed a few years ago as the 11th best leader in the world. What was that like? Hours, the work, kind of, without giving the secret sauce away, what was that like for people, for the thousands of people watching this that are at home, that are working, that are in the business world, that are CEOs? What was it like in that environment? What was a day or a week like in the life of Alabama football?
Yeah, I have a unique perspective working with Coach Saban because I worked with him 3 different times: Michigan State, LSU, and Alabama. And the way I can best describe it is 4th and 1 from the 1 to win the game in the 4th quarter every single day. in seasonality. That's really what it was all about. And Nick is he's a special guy, and that he's a very hard guy to keep up with. He sets a relentless pace, and the attention to detail, the sense of urgency, every single day, whether it's in season or out of season, is just really something that I haven't seen that anywhere else in any organization that I've been in, college or pro, and it forces you to step up, get with the process, or decide that this is not for me and go somewhere else. And so I embraced it, and because of that, I became a much better football coach.
What were your hours like? A Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, then obviously, game prep Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Help people understand a little bit of what the hours are like. You're in your mid 40s. You're raising two boys, but back then, younger kids. What were your hours like? Help people understand.
Well, when I started at Michigan State in 1997, I would carve out how much time I needed to sleep, and I would work the rest of the time. So I figured out I could get by with 4 hours of sleep, and so I pretty much, worked, 19, 20 hours a day, probably 5 or 6 days a week. As I got older and more mature, I realized that was not necessary. But working in that type of environment, typically getting up at 5 a.m. and getting home at 11:30, at night, 11 o'clock, 11:30 at night was usual. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, it would lighten up towards the end of the week, where I would be more of a get home around dinner time on a Thursday or Friday. But it was the hours are very, very long. And this, but it's coaching, in my opinion, is not a job; it's a lifestyle, and that's the lifestyle that I chose.
Yeah, you've been involved now at Colorado, now at Michigan State, in that belief that you can develop the whole person, and you've got exposed to that probably earlier, but certainly through Coach Saban's usage of a lot of different psychological people, obviously myself being within that architecture. Help me understand your understanding of A, the power of the mind, but B, the ability to influence that.
Yeah, the power of the mind to me is everything, and that's really where you get the winning edge. Being able to have control of yourself, have control of your thoughts, your thought processes, and how you absorb information, and how you put it into context. And being around Coach Saban, he always was about developing the entire player and also the entire coach, and that's a big part of it. So using strategic advisors like yourself, were important because in our business, we're CEOs, we're football coaches, but we're CEO types. And so, we have to make sure that we're aligned with our values, what we believe in, just personally. And as long as we can do that, make sure that we're centered and we're focused, we have great perspective, then we can have efficient, high achieving organizations.
Help me understand the statement, you don't need to be sick to get better.
Yeah, well, I believe in lifelong learning. I learned that from Coach Saban. He was always trying to get better. And I don't believe that you wait for a problem to pop up before you call in someone to ask their advice. Continue to read, to study, to anticipate, issues that may come down the road. Just see the big picture. Always try to stay ahead. Stay 2 steps ahead of the posse. And if you can do that, and have a process of just evaluating what you're doing, and then kind of seeing what the roadblocks might be down the road. If you can have a process of doing that, then you're going to have a much more consistent and higher performing organization, and you're going to minimize the very, very low points and stay consistent in the higher range of production.
You're a head football coach now, Tuck. You're $6 million a year. You're overseeing one of the top programs in the country. You got to start a little bit late in terms of getting there mid-February. For the 90% of the world right now that's sheltering in place and dealing with all these unique challenges, you've got sort of the job of your dreams. Obviously, head coach last year for the first time at Colorado. You were an interim head coach in the NFL with the Jacksonville Jaguars. But what is life like in your life, and how are you navigating, the NCAA, the news, new employees that you haven't been able to really meet or spend time with, the meetings? You have 120 employees that are players. You've got 55 staff members. You've got all these different things, and everybody's all across the country at home. And so you are this CEO, you are this leader. You've got sponsors, you've got all this thing. How are you dealing with this? Just over the course of your day right now, give us some thought into your world, because you didn't inherit a ship that was cruising this direction. You have a lot of things that you've got to adapt, from recruiting, etc. What is life like for you right now, Mel?
Trevor, one thing that I learned from you that's really helped me during this time is just neutral thinking. When as I listen to you mention all of those things that have transpired since I've been here, and I'm saying, wow, that's a lot. And so how do I handle that on a daily basis? I start, every day just neutral thinking. Okay, this is what it is. Okay, now what do I need to do? Yep. What is the best course of action, and not think about what it used to be or what it could be or what I wish it would be. What is it right now? What is it right now? And then what needs to be done? And so that baseline thinking allows me to do whatever I need to do that day. A big part of what I'm doing right now, and I use this word relentlessly every day, is connection. Connection is the key for me right now. I have a new staff, I got new players, new alumni, new administrators. Everything is just new. But being very intentional about connecting with people is really where the rubber meets the road with me. And because of social distancing, I can't go down the hallway and dip into someone's office and connect. It's not a water cooler, moment. I can't call a staff meeting. I can't go across campus and meet with the AD. Personally, it's video calls, it's Zoom meetings, it's FaceTime, it's text, it's direct message, it's email, it's all those types of things. Being very intentional and saying, listen, it is what it is, but my number one job is I have to connect with people and connect others to build this football team, build this organization. And so that's really where I keep my focus.
And it's credible for people that know you. Obviously, one of your most amazing strengths is your ability to form relationships. You see you in those big moments in Rose Bowls, whether it's, beating Miami to win a national championship, or, just a few years ago, beating Oklahoma, and Roquan making that big stop on third down, and Lorenzo blocking that punt. But your connection, how have you adapted? Because so much of your skill is eye contact, touch. How have you adapted the skill set you have, which is so powerful in person, to draw upon those skills in these Zoom meetings or FaceTime or these Microsoft Teams meetings? How have you been able to leverage that strength? Because I agree with you. You have to build relationships, and we always talk about the illusion of choice. 5 years from now, as big as this moment is, you'll either have built them or you didn't.
That's right.
And building them is a objective requirement of any good team. and any good leadership group. So the reasons you can't, while being real, they won't stand the test of time because you still got to find a way to do it as best you can. We talked with your staff about being the best you can relative to the moment. How are you doing that? Like, what's it like? Give us an example of a specific example of how you do it now outside of just the transactional nature of the call.
Well, for example, this morning we had Phil Gillespie has been on campus here with over 20 years with Athletes in Action, and I've met Phil face to face before COVID-19 in my office, and we talked about how he would service our staff and our players. And so I reached out to him last week and I said, hey, listen, let's get a Bible study together for the coaches. We'll do it by Zoom. Whoever wants to participate, and we'll set that up. So we had one this morning at 10 a.m. and there's 26 staff members in there.
Wow.
And we can all see each other on Zoom, and it was a great way for us to connect in a way that's outside of football. It's outside of X's and O's, it's outside of budgets, it's outside of those things when we're going to get back going and all that type of stuff. And so, I think that helps everyone in my staff. It helps the organization understand what I'm all about. What's important to me is that I want to help them any way that I can, and I want to use my relationships and my platform to be able to help develop them. It's very important for me to leave margin in my day. Talk about one of the things I had to do to adapt was I had to slow down, because I like to move quickly, even though I love to connect. I had to slow down and leave margin in my day, because each connection that I make, each phone call, each Zoom, each FaceTime, I have to make sure that I can be totally authentic, relaxed, in the moment, and not rushed. And because I don't know when I'm going to see that person again. I don't know if I don't know when that next face-to-face interaction is going to be. So I have to make sure that one counts. So instead of scheduling, phone calls, every 30 minutes, for 3 hours, maybe I'll schedule, 3 calls for the morning, and a call may go an hour. It may go 10 minutes. But it's okay because I've got time in my schedule to do that. And so every contact point, every call, every connection can be totally authentic. We can give it the time that it deserves, and we can actually go deeper into that relationship.
Right. And one of the things that you and Kirby and Jimbo and Nick would always say, who you are speaks so loudly I can't hear a word you say. And so when you do things like Athletes in Action and bring in Bill Gillespie, that's a demonstration. That's not saying you need to believe in this or you don't, but we want to provide this for you at 10 o'clock, in the morning. So we're not asking you to come late or get up at 4, but because spirituality, in however version you need, is something that some of us are in touch with even more now than we were, because of this sort of connection we all have with humanity, and then sort of a general fear we face, not understanding exactly when all this is going to end, what it is exactly we're facing.
Yeah, I really believe in servant leadership, and at any time, you don't know what people are going through. You want to treat everyone as though they're hurting, and that's a good starting spot with people.
Yeah.
And how you treat them and how you approach them. But in this time now, with social distancing, it's even more important now than ever. Sometimes you can't really get the body language. You can't, you don't get the notion that, hey, maybe someone showed up 20 minutes late. There might be something wrong with them. So, we have to do a really good job. I have to do a really good job of, being a great listener and intentional about connecting, and then creating environments where people can can feel like they can communicate and they can express. Like when I brought you in and on the Zoom call with the staff, I mean, there's 56 people on that call, on that Zoom call, and which is great. And then next thing you know, they every staff member ordered your book and they're reading. And so, and I believe in what you and concepts that in the philosophy that you have. So in turn, they're getting to know more about me. And so even just bringing people in that kind of are similar minded thinking, philosophically,
are reinforcing
that helps.
your
Reinforcing the staff. Reinforcing my point, and they can see where I'm coming from, and it helps them grow. And kind of think about, hey, maybe I need to take a look at neutral thinking. Maybe this can help me, or you know what? Hey, that's not what I'm all about, but that's okay.
Yeah,
we're still connecting, we're still sharing, and we continue to do that. We'll be in a much better place.
Well, and that's where I think I love that you reference it, because the idea of being neutral right now is this recognition of the three states, like what happened, what is happening, and what will happen, and we don't know how what happened. Like, we don't want to spend a lot of time on what Michigan State was your first go round, or the experience. Like, we don't know what the future is going to look like. Either, and we don't know that just because now is challenging that means forever ahead's challenging, but we also don't know that everything's going to be great, which is sometimes the challenge with positive. So the idea of being neutral, which we've really, the last 4 years when we got to Georgia, we said, we're not going to emphasize positive thinking with these kids. We're going to help them understand that negative thinking and talking about it is not good. And consuming it, and the heat and all the problems and all the challenges. And we know that might be, it's tough for coaches who are surrounded by that, but the players to understand that. So they give the future an opportunity to be new by not projecting a negative past onto it. And like I talked in the book about the Oklahoma game, because I thought that was such a great example. Because if you go a year earlier when we're playing Ole Miss and we're down 28-7 at half, and you walked in that halftime and we were 3-0 and 4 in the country, but the game was over.
Over.
It was over based upon the language and the catastrophizing and the frustration and all the different things. But it's a similar score. Baker Mayfield's having the game. He's a Heisman Trophy winner.
That's right.
And yet you walk in that locker room in that moment. The players were quiet. They were problem solving. The coaches were focusing on behaviors, not outcomes. You guys made adjustments, and you focused on the employees, Roquan, Lorenzo, so different guys. You had servant leadership from players. Sony Michel walking over an offensive player, spending time with defensive players. When in turn you'd had years, other games where the exact opposite had happened. And the second half ended up looking different than the first half. And who would have thought you would win a game 54-48? But that's what the game took, and that's got you to the national championship. So I think the idea of neutral is give the future a chance by focusing on the moment. In the last couple of questions, how are you staying educated with what's going on in the world? How is your organization educating you? How are you, because it's so easy to get scared, paranoid, particularly as you got to communicate with your staff and your kids, but you also want to be truthful. So, as a CEO, talking to 60 people every staff meeting in the morning, 120 employees, and then plus the millions of dollars that are invested in your school, how are you, A, receiving the information, and B, externalizing it?
Yeah, first I had to cut down on the amount of cable network news that I watch, because you talk about the negative. I mean, there's only so much of that can be helpful. I want to be informed, but in the morning, I'll get what I need to get, and then I'm done. I'm good with that. I try to take advantage of the experts that we have available. We're on a college campus. Our university president is a doctor. He's an infectious disease expert, and so I read every email that I get from the university. And those emails and that information is those are facts. It's facts based. It's expert knowledge. There's no fluff. It's very well constructed. It's laid out, and it is what it is.
Yep.
And so I know that if I read those emails and I take in that information, I limit some of the BS that I could get elsewhere, opinions and predictions and hypotheticals. If I can just eliminate that, then I can do my job more effectively.
Yeah.
I can stay neutral. Then I can portray that I can reflect that onto my staff, project that onto my staff, and then in turn we can project that onto the players, and so we can maintain a level of consistency and not necessarily positive thinking, like you said, but non-negative, and remain neutral, and like I say, give the future a chance.
Yes.
At some point we're going to be out of it.
Yep.
When we don't know, but this is what we know now, and so this is what we can do today.
Yep.
And this is how we can help prepare for the next step, whatever that step is. And we may not know it, but we'll be ready for that because of our mindset and the way we think and way we take in information, way we process things. It allows us to get better. Even during this time, we can still improve and get better. Use this as an opportunity to do so.
Yes. And I love that, Coach. And then also the knowledge base, and you and I talk about it for people that don't follow college or pro sports or sports in general, particularly football, particularly those from the Nick Saban architecture. And I'm not objective. I just think it's the best coaching model out there, in my opinion. But it is a try hard model. It is if you think you've done enough, do more. And that's not always productive. And sometimes we, and particularly right now, and like you talked about, Coach Tuck, that leaving that margin for error and giving yourself that time and getting out and going for a walk and breathing and spending time with your two boys. Talk to me about what it's like to be a father right now.
Yeah, it's this is the
most
with
two boys in a brand new state. For the third time in 6 years.
Yeah, it's I've never spent this much time with my boys. I mean, ever. Even in coaching in the summer, you take about 4 weeks vacation, 1 week's in the office, and you have some family time. This has been totally different. Like, we do not leave the house, so they're always here. And even though they're teenagers and they're in their rooms quite a bit of time on their computers, I still see them all the time. And to me, we talked about that this morning as a staff. That's a blessing in disguise. That's something that we probably never could have anticipated, that we would be able to reconnect with our families, our wives, our kids. During this time, it's been phenomenal, and it's forced me to think about what will the new normal be. What will that future be, and how can I learn from what's happening now, and how can I use this to help me in the future? Take another look at how we what a coaching lifestyle is.
Yeah.
And maybe what it can be. What does it take to be efficient? What does it take to be effective? What is production? And how do you evaluate that? And can you be more productive and more efficient with more balance? Can you work from home? Can you work from home more?
And what are a couple things that just a couple moments you might be willing to share that just stand out? Some time with your boys that just small things that in the past, it just where you kind of reflect on it. And this is really cool. Obviously you got athletes, you got students. But just what are a couple things that just stand out where you're, just maybe a couple moments that wouldn't normally happen, that have been just, really where you looked back and been appreciative of the time, this extra time?
Yeah, there's been so many of them, and like I said, with teenage boys, they get to the point where they don't talk to you as much, but I had a moment the other night where I'm sitting in the living room with my oldest boy, my 18-year-old Joseph, and I had some mixed emotions about, you mentioned, salaries, and I'm having mixed emotions about there's so many people hurting, and then comparing and contrasting that to my particular situation here where I'm not hurting in that way. And Joseph just happened to be in there, and I said to him, I said, hey, you think I'm selfish? You think I'm a selfish guy? And he looks at me, he said, no, I think you're actually, I think you're the opposite of being selfish. You're not a selfish guy. And then he says to me, he said, you're like me. He said, you can't be selfish because you care so much about how other people think of you. So you can't be selfish. And that was a time when it was just he and I that I thought about that quite a bit. Like, what did he say? Why did he say that? How did he see me? How did he see himself? How he's comparing. He's saying that we're similar in these ways, and that's probably not a conversation that I would have had with him if it hadn't been for the stay in place, stay at home COVID-19 deal.
That's incredible, and to get that type of affirmation, first of all, to ask that question, particularly all those years when you start out making $17,000 for the year and living in a dorm room, and this evolution, which is but it certainly is a powerful question to ask, particularly with 25 million people out of work, and all those things. But to get that affirmation from your son, who could give you, who only him could give you that, and how judgmental kids are. So if he didn't feel that way, he Joseph wouldn't have said it. So I appreciate you sharing that, Mel, because I think that there's just, as you've gone through, you've talked about, what it's like running an organization and the idea of connection. And then your focus, if you follow Coach Tucker, Mel Tucker on social media, Instagram, he's a really great follow and new to it. And then same with Twitter, Coach Tucker, Mel Tucker. But this idea of being relentless and Mel and I are very close, and he's known, been with me through challenges, both good and bad, and one that's very reliable and very dependable. And I think that it's great when your kids give you that affirmation. But I think the idea of being relentless is not always doing more. It's taking time for those conversations. Yeah. It's taking time. It's relentless in the idea of being connected. It's also, I'll call Mel and say, watch this movie. Give us my last couple things. What are a couple things, as I've told you, we've talked no TV, we limit that. But when you have those windows of time with your kids or yourself, what are a couple things you might be watching on Netflix or iTunes that you'd be willing to share with the crew?
Yeah, well, I'm a huge Anthony Bourdain fan, and so
nice.
I go back and I rewatch, the episodes because I get something new every time. So I do that. I've started on Ozark. I think that's Netflix.
Yes,
which is addictive. House of Cards. I'm on season 2. I started in a House of Cards.
Yeah,
I watched a documentary series, The Family, which is about a group, religious organization, spiritual organization in Washington that's highly political, and I enjoy that. And then so I try not to watch too much, because next thing you know, it's 2:00 in the morning, and I'm like, let me watch one more deal. It's pretty addictive, but I have dipped into the Netflix and the Apple TV more than I have in the past.
Right, but the great thing about it, in my opinion, particularly if you don't binge and go, I mean, if it's the weekend, it is what it is.
Yeah.
But it does give your mind a break, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I need that.
Yeah, and I guess my last question, Coach, best advice for people running organizations in leadership positions, whether they're a district manager at a pharmaceutical company, a regional director, or a CEO or Microsoft, or they're running a restaurant serving takeout, whatever. but they're leading people. What's your best advice going forward in April of 2020?
Yeah, I would say trust the people that you've hired. Trust the process that you undertook to hire those people, and then let them do their jobs. You can't over Zoom. You can't Zoom people to death right now with the meetings. And if you're worried about someone slacking off and not doing their job, then you probably hired the wrong person. And so I think we have to be very mindful that everyone's stressed out right now because of the uncertainty, the unknown. We're all, highly productive, highly efficient, competitive folks. So, everyone's working from home. Everyone wants to be productive. And so as a leader, let's leverage those talents and that motivation, and let it flow and let it work, and not try to constrain it and hold people overly accountable just to make us feel better.
Yeah.
To say, hey, listen, hey, everybody's making a whole bunch of money here. I got to make sure these guys are doing their jobs. That's not what this is all about. They're going to do their jobs. Let them do their jobs. And how can you help? How can you help? Can you help them get a better internet connection? Can you help them get a webcam? Can you help them? Can you set up a Bible study? Can you bring in Trevor Moawad? Can you get them can you recommend a book? Can you give them a day off? Like 2 weeks ago, I gave them off on Wednesday.
Yep.
I said, everybody's going to be off on Wednesday because I think, some people are working 16 hours a day right now from home. I sense that. So everybody's got a day off on Wednesday. They're like, what? Well, hey, that's what it is. Like, I think as leaders, I think that's what we can do right now. Serve the people that work for us and not feel like they need to serve. They don't need to serve us. We need to serve them, help them out.
Yeah, and I think you go into this idea, and it's just awesome listening to you, Mel, just your whole evolution. But it's also your DNA, like, these times as leaders, we're being exposed. And they always say adversity doesn't build character, it exposes it. Whether you're going through a personal challenge and you're trying to work and raise kids and all sorts of stuff, but you have this extra stress and can you still care about people, serve other things, as well as navigate that, or whatever the situation is. But I love that idea of psychological pay. Like, we're paying people through psychology, through caring about them. Not just because the natural thing might be in some ways, hey, you still got a job. And that's true, and that's something to be really happy about. But it's not always psychological pay. So all of a sudden, just a Wednesday when it's not expected, the opportunity for a Bible study. Hey, we're going to hear Trev talk for 20 minutes, and the biggest thing I talked about was not being unconsciously incompetent relative to your negativity consumption. Because a lot of us are consuming it because we think we need to be responsible and know certain facts, but we're immune because we're not avid politicians to the politicizing of it and all the different elements and all the different things. So just be mindful of this. You can still do it, but be mindful that cable news doesn't have a responsibility to you. They have a responsibility to who's paying them relative to advertising. And that's their job. It's not right or wrong. It is, but all these different things, Coach Tucker, I think, are psychological pay. And you can pay your children with that. Like, we're going to go for a walk, or we're going to go for a drive, or just different types of things, and board game night, or, just different types of things that nobody has any answers. You didn't read a manual, on growth mindset that says, give a day off after the 7th week on a Wednesday. That's your instincts, right. and thinking about, yes, we have a core responsibility. They are going to be held accountable. They know, but they are also, I have people, some have no kids. You have a lot of coaches in the coaching world that have foregone the traditional life. They're 28 years old, 35 years old, and they're grinding. They're completely by themselves right now.
That's right.
You
That's
know,
right.
and so you have all sorts of different things. So just providing options, and I think that's what leadership is. It's a verb. It's doing things, and so I love that. It's so great to hear it because that's who you are, and then I think that's why you end up. You know, Russell Wilson, obviously my business partner with Harrison and DJ in this Limitless Minds, says I'm so proud to be one of 32 starting quarterbacks in the National Football League, and he knows what that means and how rare it is. And I think for you to understand, to be in that 100+ NCAA Division I football coaches, and that less than 40 and 50 in Power 5 conferences that are competing for national championships, that's a really big deal, but it's also a really big responsibility.
Yeah, it is, and I don't take it lightly. I appreciate the position that I'm in, and I feel blessed to be in this position. It's I've always had a philosophy, because I'm a defensive coach, by trade, and I always had a philosophy on defense that if you're looking to defend a very complicated offense, then you can't be complicated on defense. People are going to be confused. They're not going to play fast. They're not going to be aggressive. It's going to cause a lot of stress. So here we have a very complicated issue, the COVID-19 and everyone working from home and all that. It's very complicated and it's very uncertain. So how can we do simple better?
Yep.
Right now less is more.
Yep.
And that's the approach that I'm trying to take, every day. And sometimes I have to pull myself back. I have to pull myself back and say, hey, listen, man, you're doing too much. You're trying too hard. This is you're making it more difficult than it is. And so I think that's a big part of just, neutral thinking, do simple better, less is more. Let's be effective and efficient in what we do and care about people. Yep. How can we be authentic and how can we care about people and keep people, you win with people, keep people in the forefront of our minds. Is that these are special relationships, a special moment in time. We got to look out for each other, and the leaders, have to take care of the followers.
Yep. I think that's incredible, Coach. Well, listen, you got a lot of Spartan fans already out there. You certainly met a lot of new people. I really encourage you to follow Coach Tucker because I think success leaves clues. And I think that people who, one of the things that I've noticed about many people who are really good at what they do, that would transfer to anything. The first time I met Olympian Michael Johnson, I heard him talk for 30 minutes to 17 football guys. I remember thinking, man, he could run Microsoft, and just like the same time I had a chance to meet, the U.S. women's national soccer team and spend some time around them. You could just see why they were World Cup winners, the way they behaved, the way they interacted, the way they went out. So Coach Tucker, thank you so much for joining us. You got a lot of Spartan fans. Thank you for spending this time with Limitless Minds. You are somebody who definitely thinks big and somebody who certainly is going far. So very appreciated, Coach.
Yeah, thanks, Trev. Thanks for having me on, man. Anytime, man. You take care, buddy.
Thanks, Coach. That was awesome. I really appreciate what you shared with us from what you learned back in the day with Coach Saban and Coach Tressel and those leadership principles and how you're able to apply them now in a time that really we've never seen before, to lead your current team, to lead your family, and just to be the best version of yourself. And that's what it's all about. And I know I got a lot out of today, and I know the viewers did too. We're excited to, again, complete another webinar, and we're going to continue this conversation in the chat room. So for the next 10 minutes, we'll be in the chat room. Trevor was there last week answering questions. We'll have the Limitless Minds team there this week as well. And we just love having you guys on board and going through this journey with us. So hopefully we help you find the way through, and we look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you.